Welcome to Voices of Adoption, where we share unique perspectives, actionable advice, and meaningful stories of birth parents, adoptees, adoptive families, and other members of the adoption community. I'm Donna Pope, Executive Director of Heart to Heart Adoptions.
And I'm Nathan Gwilliam, founder and former CEO of Adoption.com.
Together, we've been part of thousands of adoption journeys over the past 25 years, and we're so glad you're here.
Let's begin today's conversation.
Welcome to Voices of Adoptions. I'm Donna Pope, and we're super excited to be here with Mark. Mark, I can't even tell you how glad I am to talk with you today. And let me tell you why. Because I'm an adoptive mom, and my son, he has a similar background to yours. He was adopted, and he had drugs in his system when he was adopted. And I'm kind of a little frustrated with him right now. And so I do want to ask you questions about your adoptive mom and how she was. But we're here with Mike. And Mike, tell us a little bit about yourself. You're an adoptee, an advocate, and an inspirational voice. And sometimes we need these inspirational voices. But tell us a little bit about you and your story.
Yeah, I was adopted at the age of around between 1.5 and 2.5, out of Amarillo, Texas. And then from there, my mom moved because she was in a government position. We moved to Arizona, 97, and I've been here in southeastern Arizona ever since. My mom did really good, had a really good childhood. Was very open about the adoption. I think when she felt I was at the appropriate age, but I always knew that I was adopted. So I'd say every maybe year or so, I would get more answers as to what took place and what transpired. And then I guess by the time I turned 18, 19, she kind of laid it on pretty thick, and showed me the files and different things like that. But yeah, it was a single parent household. It was just her and I. Couple dogs, and yeah, she was great. I mean, so much love in the household. I never really had to want for anything. Grew up in the church, and she taught me a lot of family values and things that I still carry on today. And yeah, she's no longer with me. She passed away almost 2 years ago. But yeah, her memory lives on, and I'm really blessed to be here.
So how old are you, Mike?
I'm 35.
You're 35. And so you had her until you were 33.
Mm-hmm.
So when you say that she kind of laid it on heavy and thick when you were 18, tell me a little bit more about what that meant.
Yeah, so I, was very, had a lot of questions, and I could sense from years that she was kind of withholding, and she's always saying, I'll tell you later, when the time's right. And so, yeah, she had pulled out a file that I'd never seen before, and she had shown me that, I was born with cocaine in my system, and those first hours after was a home birth too. And so things weren't really set up correctly, if that makes sense, as far as delivering. And it from the file, it looked like it was kind of a rough time for me. I developed asthma, which they attribute due to that, which I kind of outgrew as an adult. But that, and then how the birth parents had no contact at the hospital, so their rights were just terminated outright. And so then going into a foster home. So I knew I was in a foster home, but I didn't know the details about the drug use and the rights being terminated at the hospital. So I think in her eyes, which I agree with, it was probably a lot to comprehend at such a young age, which is why she waited until, I got to be an adult.
Are you glad she did?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Because at times I was like, no, I don't understand why she's withholding. And, I'd get a little angry, but totally understood. And I told her that, thank you for not telling me and being cognizant of my feelings.
So did it change your way of viewing yourself once you learned that you had had cocaine in your system and that you were in a foster care for a period of time? Did that change how you thought of yourself?
Um, I guess it was a little troubling at first to take in, just kind of when you think of the grand scheme of things and you see things on the news that happen to people and people that weren't here anymore, like car accidents or just any kind of tragedy. And so it started playing tricks on me as far as like, wow, I went through something like that and I was still here. So in that aspect, it wasn't like a anger. It was just more of like a just being grateful,
Mhm.
that I was still able to, that I had no lingering effects, outside of asthma, like no developmental disabilities. Like, they said I might not read at the right level, that my, math and things like that would be pretty challenging, but you'd never know it. I was a really, normal kid with virtually, really nothing wrong with them.
So, do you attribute that to your adoptive mom?
Oh yeah, because of her background in education. So, she was a health administrator for a federal prison, and then she retired and got her teaching degree and went and taught on the reservation. And so, from the time that I can remember until I was an adult, everything was about good grades, respect, and I tell a story that I used to have to do book reports on the summer. If my book report wasn't up to par, then, I wasn't going to be able to do so much with my friends. So she was constantly making my mind work and not just turn into idle hands.
And so, do you ever regret that you were placed for adoption? I talk with a lot of people, and some of them go, "Oh, I was rejected and I regret that." How do you feel about it?
No, not at all. I had the best childhood. I mean, even just being her and there's no regret because maybe I would have been okay over there, but it didn't start out very good. So, no, I think it was a true blessing to be able to be put with her, and in a sense we kind of completed one another. She used to tell me she used to pray for a child in moments, and so it was a really good thing for both of us. So yeah, there's no, I'm so grateful.
Do you kind of wish you knew more about your biological family?
I'd say at first I did. Around that time, she gave me the folder, and that was kind of a hard conversation, but she understood wanting answers. And she was very supportive, and I did. I followed the rabbit hole and was able to track some people down, and it was worse than I thought. It wasn't just myself. There were other kids that in that union, if you will, that suffered. I mean, they really suffered. So it just really gave me that reassurance that I was in such a good spot. So,
And so you kind of got out of that situation. Adoption pulled you out of where you saw some of your siblings being.
yeah, due to the when I was born, and then because of the drugs were born in the system, I'm not exactly sure how it went down, but because the biological mom didn't come back, and the father had no contact the hospital, and I guess the state just wrote it off as a complete termination, which honestly was probably best for both parties.
And so sometimes people feel a little rejected. They feel like, oh, my biological parents didn't care enough to come back and get me or
Hmm.
even be a part of it. How did you deal with those emotions?
I see, like early on when I was like 8 or 9, those were probably normal feelings that maybe people of other adoptees have felt. But I think for me anyways, when you look around and I saw that, I had two dogs running around, I had a brand new bike, I had a scooter, I always had food in the fridge. And I think at a young age, I was able to understand that this was something really good for me. So even though it was a normal feeling to feel sad a little bit, maybe from rejection, there were still so many good things on the other side.
Mhm. You say that your faith, and possibly the faith of your mom that kind of moved you along? How did that help you?
I just think it was instrumental in growing up. I would say that I was in church from the earliest time that I can remember. And when she had adopted me, it was a big process in Texas that, um, you know, she prayed about it. And because she was 45 and she was a single woman, they weren't really the state. They weren't very privy to giving, single moms, let them adopt because they felt like, for one, she was too old. They felt like she wasn't married. So there was going to be, a clash. And then on the third thing is that she was going to take kind of a troubled child. And so she, kept praying, and she said that the faith is what, pulled her through. And so bringing me up in the same light, it's been great ever since.
Those are reasonable concerns that people would have, her being too
Mhm.
old, her being not married, and so there wouldn't be a father figure in the home. These additional challenges of working with someone who had drugs in their system. How did she kind of move through those challenges?
She just said she knew that, she was going to have this happen, and by going to church, she had already put a team together. So she had gotten godparents for me that were in the church. So she said, if something happens, they're there. And then we still have a really strong family with her brothers and her parents who were alive at the time. So that helped for her to be able to lean on for support from them. And then knowing that, she picked two godparents that were going to be good as well.
Yeah. So you didn't have a father growing up. And, people say boys need dads. And so how did you manage without having a dad?
Yeah, it was tough. I'm not gonna lie. There was times that, people would go and hang out with their dads, and you know how kids are. They don't always understand, like, where's your dad at? And it was the same. Oh, my mom never married and I'm adopted. And I'd always get the same look, like, what do you mean? Um, so it was challenging, when it came to sports, trying to learn how to dribble a basketball and, um, kicking a soccer ball. Like, my mom tried as hard as she could, but she was also the sole provider, so she's working.
Mhm.
And it was tough. But I had really good friends that their parents would pick up on it. Sometimes they would help me. I was a very visual learner, so if I wanted to learn something, I could watch, and then I would just go to the back of the line if I didn't understand it, watch the people in front and gather it that way. And but it was tough for her. I mean, to raise any child and to work full time. So I had to cut her some slack, and I understood that probably around middle school. Like, your
Mhm.
mom's doing the best she can. At least she comes to all your games. You're fed, you've got everything. So I took it upon myself, maybe me, you can do a little bit more in regards to trying to learn.
Interesting. Very different than sometimes sort of a victim mentality that we hear of, "Oh, woe is me." And and I got the short end of life. And in some ways you did get sort of the short end of life. You were in a foster care, and so for the first year to 2 years of your life, you were, kind of familyless. And
Right.
then you were adopted by a single mom, so you didn't have a dad, and she was a little older and maybe didn't have some of the energy that some, moms would have. So you've made some choices along the way, that have got you to the point where you feel positive about adoption,
Oh yeah.
and you've actually wanted to go out and be an advocate for adoption. What inspired you to do that?
Just the way that I grew up in, and I always tell people it wasn't, after those first 2 years, because I don't remember anything, it wasn't rough. But I do advocate because there's so many kids that do get left behind. And that's one reason why I had started a podcast, was to be a positive figure, to help, shift the change, and because there's so much negativity in the world. And so my attitude was always like, well, if you can change your situation and your thinking, it doesn't matter where you came from. It just matters where you're going. So you don't need to look back and backwards because there's nothing back there for you. You should be looking forward. So that's kind of where, I never turned down an opportunity to come on a platform and talk about adoption. And on top of that, I did, as another form of advocacy, I wrote a book, children's book on my adoption. And I wish I had a copy here to show you, but
We will put it in the show notes of this. We'll make sure that it gets into it. But tell us a little bit about it and what made you decide to write it.
yeah, so I'd written two prior to that, and all of them are just based on my real life occurrences in childhood, and they're geared towards children. They're real bright pictures and things like that. But as far as the book is titled Michael Gets Adopted, it's very true, but it's a little loose base. The kid in the book is a little older, probably around 8 or 9, and I think it was probably more realistic because sometimes the older kids do get left behind in adoption. So I wanted to make that a little bit more appealing, but everything in there is pretty factual, but it's very easy for kids to understand. So yeah, I wanted to make sure I was able to tell that story in one of my books.
So you've done the book and you've also done your podcast. Tell me about how the podcast has gone and some of the interviews you've had and what you've learned from it.
Yeah, so I really started during COVID. Like many people, I was at home during the lockdowns, and I was watching a lot of talk shows, and so I wanted to learn and grow, and I was like, I think I can do that. And so I came up with a quick thing, and I started reaching out to different people. Guest wise, it just varies. It's maybe UFC fighters, there's actors, actresses. Like I've always said, I've been blessed, and if you go down to my YouTube channel, the chances are you've probably seen somebody in something. So it's really good. It's very positive minded. There's no negative clickbait. It's just allowing those people to share a story that might help the next generation, because that they're on something big doesn't mean that something hasn't happened to them that they overcame. And sometimes people need to hear it in their life.
And so give us an example of one of the stories that you heard that mattered to you a lot.
Oh, wow. If I had to pick one, let's see. One that really stood out to me would probably be, his name was Anthony Robles. He only has one leg, and he wrestled at Arizona State University. And they just made a movie about him. It was called Unstoppable, and it's streaming on Prime. It's got Ben Affleck made it. It's got Jennifer Lopez, Don Cheadle. They're all in the movie. And basically, he came from very humble beginnings. He only has one leg. He wrestled all the way through high school, walked on to ASU after turning down a full ride scholarship because he wanted to be closer to home to help his mom and his brothers out and his sister. And so he took a leap of faith and had to try out for a team instead of taking something that was guaranteed. And he ends up winning the championship. And it was very remarkable, inspiring that somebody that could have used the excuse of, not having something, or, he was able to just find different ways to be unstoppable. So that's one that really stuck out to me, Anthony Robles.
And especially because he had something that could have stopped him. You've had something that could have stopped you. And people choose not to be stopped, and they choose to move forward in good ways.
Right.
And in powerful ways. And that seems to be kind of your philosophy. And that's
It is.
what you're doing with your podcast, is trying to bring out that same philosophy.
I was just saying, yeah, there's so much, like I keep saying, negativity, and then that's why it's just showing the positive side of it, and that you can be an overcomer. Because yeah, I could have very well said I was born with drugs in my system. I'm gonna act up, and even though I wasn't raised that way, but no, I mean, it was a loving mom that got me to believe, no, you're in a loving, caring environment. This is the way things go. And I mean, yeah, there'll be hiccups along the way, but I mean, like I said, I thank God for every day, because who knows what would happen.
Yeah, for sure. So if you look at the adoption community in general, What do you see as some of the challenges that the adoption community needs to overcome?
I'd say, going back to my book, like, don't forget, I think a lot of kids, there's so many great stories out there and different environments they come from, but don't forget about the older ones. The older
In the
ones do,
foster care.
yeah, in
Uh-huh.
the foster care, they got left behind sometimes. And then just because something looks rough on the outside doesn't mean that, like look at myself, for example. I always wonder, and I'd ask my mom, like, why would you pick me? Why would you pick a kid that has all these different things working against him? And she goes, just because I knew you were going to be okay. And I knew if I got you home, showed you some love, so that's another thing. Just because the kids come from a really rough background, you might be that person to shift the narrative and elevate them into something really, really great. So those are a few things that I would hope that things would get settled in the future.
So I love how you've said that your mom picked you, um, and she saw in you something more than just this rough drug addicted kid. So as adoptive parents and we look at kids, sometimes we get scared and we go, I don't know that I can handle the challenges that come with this child. So, what was it about your mom that enabled her to handle the struggles and the challenges that may have come with you?
I think for one, her faith, but another thing is just her wanting to really put a child into a good environment, wanting to bless somebody. And I don't know if she looked at it as far as like, this is going to be the biggest challenge I have, which she probably did because that is how it is raising kids. But I think for her it was more of just knowing and praying and just trusting and believing. And then there's nothing better than when, I guess, when you're a parent and you see your works in motion. So yeah, I might have been born, with those things in my system, but I never touched it. You know what I mean? After that day, you know what I'm saying? Like I never did anything like that. So I think that was a testament to her and its reassurance that, like, wow, I took this kid out of here and he never, had issues with that. So
Right. So, one of the advices that you've given to adoptive parents, I don't know if advice or sort of a plea, was don't forget about the older kids and consider when you're considering adopting, consider some of these more challenging older kids. We all know that it takes, a different mindset to be able to do that. But your mom did it, and what advice would you give other adoptive parents that are considering that?
I think if you're willing, because I knew another lady that did it too. She took a child who's a little older out of an environment similar, and she leaned on my mom for advice because she saw my mom do it. And the thing that those two ladies had in common were their families. They had big, strong family background and values that people could help pick them up. And I think that's number one. And if you don't have it, I would hope that, maybe faith-based, you really pray and see um what you can draw from there. But I know families and resources, go to the classes. My mom took classes on it. She did all these things in preparation before she adopted me. So she was well equipped to be able to handle it.
No, that's really good. And so, if you were to go back and talk to your younger self, let's say when you were 8 or 9, when you were sort of struggling with some of the questions you had and maybe some of those feelings of rejection and loss, what would you say to your younger self?
Just wait and see what the future holds for you because greatness is coming, it's upon you, and don't look back, look forward. Look at all the things you have. You wake up on Christmas morning and you have this big giant Christmas tree and you have all these toys and things underneath it, and your mom's packing you your lunches, and there's kids that don't get lunches, they don't get breakfast, and they have a two-parent household, and in some ways I would tell myself you got more in one person household than some kids got in two. On top of the funds, you got love, you got lessons. So those things you really can't buy.
And so now what advice would you give other adoptees like yourself who maybe have come from rough backgrounds, who maybe had drugs in their system, who maybe only got adopted by a single mom? What advice would you give them?
I would tell them that tell your story. Tell your story because everybody has a story to tell, and only you can tell it and tell it the best way that you can because you might not think it'll help somebody, but it will. And it'll help you maybe heal by talking about it because chances are somebody's gone through something similar and maybe they need to hear it from you because they relate to you a little better than, say, somebody like my mom who was older. You're part of that, that younger generation maybe, and you can help bridge the gap.
Nah, that's wonderful. So you do a podcast. I'm wondering if you would consider doing a support group where other people like yourself could get in and you guys could just talk about stuff. Have you considered doing that?
I haven't. That's actually a really good idea. That could really benefit a lot of people.
Well, I might reach out to you to try to arrange that
Okay.
because I think that you would be excellent in helping other people who are struggling with some of the same questions that you're struggling with. Just talk it through. Let me ask you, have you ever done counseling or any of those things? And has that been helpful?
No, I don't want to say I never needed it, but I guess when I was at that young age and I was kind of confused, my mom again, she played all these different roles. All right, time to take the mom hat off and therapist and then doctor when you're sick. So no, she really was able to help guide me through all of that. And I would say, in a short time, I really understood it. Again, there are hiccups because you do see people with their father or, maybe a bigger family, in that regard. But sometimes they weren't shown as much love. So no, I never, to answer your question, no.
Many adoptees, in fact, it's kind of a mantra right now that adoption is trauma and that adoptees just simply will feel and experience trauma. How would you address that?
They can, and who knows what they've been through. And then it just takes a big, village to try to get them through that. And if that's the route that happens, then you're going to have a lot of patience, because there probably will be some, I don't want to say acting out, but there's going to be some turbulent times. And I guess you just have to see if you're made and built for it, and hopefully you can be, because you just take it a day at a time. And maybe that's where like foster care comes in. Maybe you foster kids for a little while to see if that's something you want to do before you do the adoption. That might be something, or maybe you just go and spend some time. I don't know if like volunteering and or different things like that at these different groups, and you kind of get a little close to see if that's something. But for the adoptees, with that kind of, I don't want to say behavior, but those types of things, hopefully there's a group that maybe they're going to counseling if they haven't been, because it can be a big change. For me, being 1.5, 2 years old, it's going to be a little bit of a change. But if 9, 10, 11, 12, well, these people actually knew probably their parents, or maybe they bounced around between different homes, so they feel unwanted. So yeah, you're going to have somebody in there as a mediator, maybe to help. And ironically, one of my favorite movies was Free Willy. That's one of the first movies my mom showed me, and I think it's perfect for foster care and adoption.
Explain.
That being, have you seen it?
I've seen it, and I know that he eventually dumps over the wall and swims away, but I don't remember a lot about it.
Well, because he was an older kid. He was, I think, 12 or 13 at the time, and he was on the streets. And then when they got him, because he had gotten us in mischief, spray painting downtown, the family, they take him in and they show him love. They give him dinner, brand new clothes, everything. But he's rebelling because he wants to be with his mom. He keeps saying his mom's coming. And what worked for them was when he found the job and he found the whale, and the whale was misunderstood because it didn't want to be in the tank. It wanted to be out with its family. So sometimes when those two can relate, it will help the family because now they're able to understand exactly what he's going through. So that's a movie. Really, all three of them I would recommend because they do have life lessons as far as adoption.
So did you feel that way? Did you sometimes feel like you wanted to go find your biological family and get away?
Yeah, not really get away, never to run away, just questions, just why, as a young kid, you don't understand, well, how can somebody give up a child? And that's probably the biggest thing that I probably had going for me. But again, those are those moments where mom just had to say, we don't know why, but I'm glad I have you. Look at everything that you have going for you, and those questions they're valid, and they're valid feelings. But again, it's just working through it day by day.
I love how you say that your mom would sometimes take off her mom hat and put on her therapist hat and those different roles that she had to play. And you talked about how she had gotten training and had prepared in a way for those roles. Was there a key attribute about your mom that you can look at that you can say, because of that attribute, I was able to become more positive? Can you think of that?
Oh yeah, it'd be her kindness. So kind to everybody. I mean, even after she passed, so many people that didn't know would say, "Oh, I know your mom. She did this and that for me," or she would sit down and talk with me about this, and they were like, she never showed any judgment. And so it was really, as a child, you see your parents' kindness, right? And then you see the other side when you get in trouble. And so you tend to think, I don't know if they see the same person at times, right? But that's just kids being mischievous. But I really believe her kindness, but learning to be firm was big for her because she was not a pushover. Even if I misbehave, or if my grades started to slip, there was no, well, you're adopted, I know 7, 8 years ago this and that happened to you. No, it's like, you've been in my house for this long, these are the rules, you didn't abide by them, so now you have to pay. No TV for a week or something.
Mhm. And that mattered to you. It helped you become the man that you are now.
The foundation, she set down the foundation, and that is what has allowed me to help raise my own kids.
Yeah. So tell us about your kids. Tell us about what you're doing now.
Yeah, so I again still do the podcast. I work at a prison, a federal prison. And yeah, I have two. I have a teenager boy and a preteen girl. And the foundations I keep talking about, like my mom used to read to me a lot, and that's another reason why I would make a book. But she'd read to my kids a lot, and she would start them on these abcmouse.com. I don't know if anybody's heard of it. And they're these educational type based games. And so because of her willingness, it improved my kids so much, in school. And they were never behind. They've always been really good students. But I believe it was because of her willingness as a grandma to not only just show them love when I would drop them off, but hey, you guys want to learn a fun game? And it's still paying dividends to this day. So, yeah, it's, parenthood is fun. I truly see now what my mom was going through, and I'm sure I put a lot of gray hairs on her head, and yeah, sometimes you pay for it.
Mom's always said, you just wait till you have a kid.
She was right.
And see how you do that. So podcast, working at the prison, being a dad, writing books. You've got a pretty full life right now.
I do, and I like to stay busy. It's just easier. I mean, I mean, we're only given so much time on earth, who knows when. So it's always good, in my opinion, to just stay busy and learn. You can learn books, you can learn from others, just whatever, but I like to stay busy.
Mm-hmm. Well, Mike, it has been a joy visiting with you. Is there any final advice you'd give to anybody in the adoption community from your experience?
Yeah, so if you're looking to adopt again, just do your research. Um, do the resources. There's a lot out there. Take the classes. Don't be embarrassed. Do not be embarrassed. Ask the questions. Learn as much as you can, and just take your time. Don't do anything too rash and rush into things. Make sure it's something that's coming from the heart and you feel good about it. And for the adoptees, there probably will come a time that you're going to want to ask what happened, why, how, and be cognizant too of your adoptive parents' feelings. It's not going to be easy to maybe tell somebody, I want to know a little bit more when this person's been raising you. So there could be pushback, but just try to work through it and understand, like in my case, there's reasons why they might withhold information from you because you just might not be ready. You might think you are, but you might not be. And I would say the same thing. Give them the same grace that they showed you.
No, thank you so much. I am serious about getting a support group and having you help lead that support group. I think that we need to look into that because you would be great. You'd be
Yeah.
great. And there's a lot of people who ask many of the same questions that you're asking. So let's stay in touch. Thanks so much, Mike. Talk to you later.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you for listening to Voices of Adoption. I'm Donna Pope.
And I'm Nathan Gwilliam. Every voice in the adoption triad deserves to be heard and understood.
Visit voicesofadoption.org to subscribe and access additional resources. And then join us next time as we continue to build bridges through conversation.